The minute you walked in the joint, I could see you were a man of distinction, a real big spender.
Good afternoon from Mickey and from me from Castle Goring. I'm afraid that this afternoon some of it is going to be rather heavy and serious and, in my opinion, rather odious and distasteful. But I suppose I have a responsibility to address things that you, the viewer, would like me to address, and therefore I bend to your will. But I have to tell you, the subject that we are about to tackle as the very first question is a matter of great odium to me. Okay? And I would imagine it's quite odious to an awful lot of you as well. The Queen of Kingsbury says, "Hi, Lady C. What do you think are the implications of Prince Andrew being sued in a civil lawsuit by Virginia Giuffre? Why do you think he and Fergie rushed up to Balmoral to seek protection by the Queen? Please do dish." Well, that's not funny. Oh dear. Oh dear. First of all, may I say, Prince Andrew had his visit organised long ago, so he didn't rush up to get any protection from the Queen. I just make that point for what it's worth, so that we can clear that up. The rest of it, I have to tell you, I think is a study in distastefulness and odium. First of all, let me make it absolutely clear. I think Jeffrey Epstein was a horrendous human being. I have absolutely no brief for him, nor any wish to excuse any of his misconduct. As I have said previously, he was something of a hate figure in my circle because he tried to steal a flat from one of my son's godmothers from under her in the early 1980s. Therefore, we have always known what a total sleazebag Jeffrey Epstein was. Crooked to such an extent that he would have made a corkscrew look straight. As I have pointed out before, however, none of us knew about his other activities, his sleazy, salacious, disgusting activities, which the press will insist on saying are paedophile when they were ephebophile. The two terms are medical terms, and there are significant differences between them, in much the same way that it would not be accurate to say that Lizzie Borden chopped her parents to death with a machete when she used an axe. Yes, they're both forms of knives, but one is not the same as the other. Or to put it in another way, it would not be accurate to say, oh, such and such died of cancer of the stomach when they died of cancer of the bowel or brain. Sorry. These are a matter of legal and medical definitions, and I see no merit in allowing the gutter press and the salacious sensationalist media to try to make one thing into another because they think it is more sensationalistic. It doesn't need to be more sensationalistic. It is dreadful just as it is. It doesn't need to be more horrendous than it already is. It is already as horrendous as it can possibly be. I do wish they'd take that on board. Of course, though, I am wishing in the middle of a desert, because the reality is an awful lot of people don't care about the correct use of the language. They don't care about correct definitions. They don't care about being measured in your response. They only care about sensationalism and wallowing. Well, I'm all for wallowing, but please wallow in what you're entitled to. Hopefully, I have made my stance clear, and now we can go into addressing the actual issue itself. First of all, let me say Prince Andrew has denied ever having had, shall we say, personal congress with Virginia Giuffre, previously Virginia Roberts. He has denied it categorically. That's the first point. It needs to be borne in mind. There is no way around it. The whole situation is dreadful and should not have ever happened and should not be taking place. It is just awful. And I would imagine all right-thinking people can agree upon that point. Insofar as the civil suit is concerned, I have been speaking to lawyers and other people who are very knowledgeable on both sides of the Atlantic, so that I would be, if not exactly up to speed, at least somewhat informed, so I know what is going on and I don't say things that are not so. This is a civil suit. It's not a criminal suit. They could not bring a criminal suit against Prince Andrew because Prince Andrew has committed no crime. This is a civil suit. It is not a criminal suit. It is a civil suit. Anybody, especially in America, can sue anybody for anything. You don't have to have a case that has merit. It can be meretricious. You are still allowed to file your suit. There is no doubt that this is tremendously distressing for the Queen, tremendously upsetting for everybody connected to the Queen. There are pros and cons both ways, but I will get to those in a while. I want to first of all separate Virginia Roberts from all of the other women who have been involved with the Epstein matter and are victims of Jeffrey Epstein. My understanding, and I have only superficial knowledge, so I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, is that Jeffrey Epstein was a casual disturber, shall we say, to be gentle about it all, and polite to the girls who were victimized by him, abuser of teenagers. This is terrible. There are no two ways about it. And he used his money as a lure. And in fact, my understanding is that the whole matter with Epstein started when one of the girls who was giving him massages, her mother found, I think it was $300, asked her how she came by the money, was told, was absolutely outraged, and started the ball a-rolling which ended up in Jeffrey Epstein being charged with a crime and pleading guilty. So, however, most of these girls, as far as I have been led to believe, were not members of Jeffrey Epstein's everyday group. Virginia Roberts evidently was over a period of years, not days or weeks or months, years. That raises questions as to why a 16 to nearly 20-year-old girl would have been allowing herself to be induced to be doing the things she now asserts she did unwillingly and that she was forced to do. How forced was she when she met her present husband? She left, went to Australia, married him, lived happily, had 3 children, I think. She can't have been that afraid. And she could have bolted before, but didn't. That's one troubling scenario where Virginia Roberts is concerned. Another troubling scenario is that Virginia Roberts has admitted to receiving the sum of $15,000 for her first, shall we say, engagement with Prince Andrew, claimed engagement. I need to be careful what I say legally. And she, by her own account, received $400 for her second claimed engagement. Both of these engagements took place when she was over the age of consent. By her own account, the first purported event took place in London. The age of consent in England is not 18. I think it is 16, but it's definitely 17 plus. The second purported engagement with Prince Andrew, according to her, took place in New York when she was over 17. Don't take my word for it, look it up. The age of consent in New York is 17. The third purported engagement, according to her, took place in the West Indies when she was over 18. That again is over the age of consent. That is why there has never been criminal charges filed against Prince Andrew, even if her story were to be believed by the authorities, because no crime took place, at least not from his part, because there is the possibility that when you are paid for such personal services, you call into question not only your judgment, but what you are doing in legal terms. I have never in my life, I have to tell you, and I view this whole thing as a total outsider, I have never heard of anybody who was so terrified that they spent nearly 4 years flying all over the world with a sleazebag like Jeffrey Epstein and being paid handsome sums to engage, according to her, with his friends. Now, I have a great deal of sympathy for any young person who wasn't properly brought up, and she cannot have been properly brought up, otherwise she wouldn't have been doing what she did. She couldn't have got herself in that mess if she had been properly brought up. Her parents have a lot to be blamed for in this matter, but she needs to accept personal responsibility as well for her misjudgments. You know, there's a reason why in the Bible, in the Lord's Prayer, it says, "Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." She was led into temptation, as were doubtless many other girls. But I'm not aware of any of the other girls hanging around for several years. And if Virginia Roberts' account can be believed, according to what I have read, she also said that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, just before she met her husband, had suggested to her that she be the surrogate for their baby. I am afraid that tells me that they trusted her. That does not tell me that she gave any indications whatsoever that she was a victim, whether willing or unwilling. And since her association with them continued long after her majority, I think we need to bear in mind that much as she is right to regret what happened to her, and much as she is right to have negative feelings about the way she might have been lured into the situation, she also needs to accept the fact that she was apparently a willing victim, to such an extent that they trusted her to carry their baby, at least if what she says is true and if the report is accurate, which I gather it is accurate. These are just some of the difficulties with which the case is fraught. Virginia Roberts has previously made claims that were thrown out in court. Yes, she has set herself up as a champion of girls who have been lured and then trafficked. And admirable as that is, I question why she would feel the need to be going after Prince Andrew when he broke no laws. Had he done so, he would have been charged with a crime. He was never charged with a crime. Also, it is worth noting at this point that Jeffrey Epstein, although he was charged with crimes in the early part a disgusting sweetheart deal, which I think was just reprehensible. And later on, sex trafficking, which is fraught with difficulties because evidently he had been assured by the authorities that he would not be charged with any further crimes. And a justice system that cannot be relied upon to keep its word is not a good justice system. And we have just had the Bill Cosby case. And I also have to point out that I have no brief for men taking advantage of women. I think it is terrible. And it is up to us as women to make sure we are not being taken advantage of. But equally, if we live in a civilized society where there is a rule of law, the law has to respect itself. It can't willy-nilly change its rulings for its own convenience. That is not the rule of law. That is the rule of crookery and of disorder. Of course, the word, and I should say at this point, and Jeffrey Epstein was never charged with the crime of rape, ever. He was not charged with it. That is worth noting. In fact, my understanding, and I don't know that much about the matter, but my understanding is that the complaints against him are stopped, shall we be delicate and say, short of anything penetrative. However, where the waters get muddied and where the civil suit and the criminal suit diverge and coincide at the same time, incidentally, is with the definition of what is a minor and what is a child. Recently, on both sides of the Atlantic, in certain countries, including America, they have been at pains to call minors children. This creates a degree of confusion that is really not desirable in terms of clarity where the law is concerned. Because really, there's an infant, then there's a baby, then there's a toddler, then there's a child, then there's somebody who is pubescent, then there's a teenager. I think anybody who called most 14-year-olds a child would find that they were very, very put out to be called children. However, in terms of the law, a minor is a child, although that child is allowed to smoke after a certain age, to drive after a certain age, used to be allowed to drink up to a certain age, certainly can have Congress after a certain age, can get married below the age of 18 when they are still a minor. In other words, a child. And the word child has crept in effectively legally through the back door to confuse as opposed to clarify the issue. Also, the four-letter word beginning with R and the rest of it is ape, because this is YouTube, I need to be careful what I say. That is being fudged legally by confusing age of consent, minority, and child. So it is now a word that is being used in the context of Prince Andrew, but it can't be used criminally because no such crime has been committed. I need to make these points clearly so that you will see the complete minefield that faces Prince Andrew, because it is a terrible situation for anybody to be in. And I am slightly uncomfortable that David Boyes, Virginia Roberts Giuffre's lawyer, who incidentally has represented such undesirables as Harvey Weinstein and Elizabeth Holmes, Theranos. He was given a great deal of Theranos shares by Elizabeth Holmes. Makes me ask a few questions there. I also want to know, he was speaking on the BBC about compensation for her. I want to know if he is on the standard 50% arrangement fee that he and Gloria Allred and all of those other lawyers who represent people are on. Now, I have nothing against contingency fee arrangements. I will get to that at some other time in another matter. But I have nothing against them. I think if lawyers take a risk, they should be given the reward. But let us remember, they're not in this for the good of humanity only. They're also in this for the good of their pockets. 50% of any award is pretty hefty. David Boyes, discomfortingly I discovered, is also a Democrat. And when I dug deeper, I discovered that there has been a concerted attempt by Virginia Giuffre's legal team to rope Prince Andrew in and use him as a canary, was the expression that sprang into the conversation that I was having with more than one legal person. A canary, incidentally, used to be sent up the chimney when the chimney sweeps in the Victorian age were sweeping chimneys to see if there were any noxious gases. If the canary survived, fine. If the canary died, noxious gases. It is interesting that Prince Andrew is being used as a canary because Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, was used as a canary as well. That was in 1992 when the water was being tested to see what the public reaction would be to their separation before Diana implemented her separation with Charles. So it seems that the Yorks are very unfortunate because they're always cast in the role of canary. And why is Andrew the canary? Well, it's really interesting. We all know politics is a dirty business, and we all know that politics can be very Machiavellian. Well, what I have been told shows just how Machiavellian it can be. The Democrats have been terrified that if they don't divert with Prince Andrew, that Bill Clinton, who was far closer to Jeffrey Epstein, would have his name more readily brought into matters. And they have been happy to have Prince Andrew used as the canary, so that if there's any legal case and the legal case comes to naught, Bill Clinton's free and clear. And if it doesn't, Bill Clinton knows that he needs to make other plans and be worried. And he will need to be worried, because it's only a matter of time before the Republicans get back in. And if these are the games that the Democratic legal representatives of various states have been playing, and these are the games that well-established Democratic lawyers are playing, they need to understand Prince Andrew is not going to save Bill Clinton's bacon. So they really need to think very clearly as to what they are doing. Although, of course, I gather that people like that don't really think too much into the long term. So they figure as long as they can just delay, it will hopefully go away. You know, somebody might die, the world might come to an end. Really, the whole thing is, you couldn't make this up. It's so bizarre. Now, we come to what happens in a lawsuit that is a civil suit. If Prince Andrew, he can defend it, he doesn't have to be in America to defend it. He can defend it from in England. He can be deposed in England. He can ignore it. There can be a default judgment. It would then have to be domesticated in his country of domicile, that is Britain, for the judgment to be collected upon, presuming that there are damages. There is no certainty that any English judge, and I say English because we don't have British judges, we have English and Welsh, then we have Scottish and Northern Irish. We have 3 different legal systems in this country. It is arguable whether an English judge would domesticate a judgment unless he was satisfied that the judgment was all that it ought to be. And regrettably for Mrs. Giuffre, her admissions of payments for services in kind, doesn't matter that she was a teenager, she was over the age of consent, she was over the age of reason, she should have known the difference between right and wrong. If she didn't, what comfort would that be to a judge? Why would he think that she knows the difference between right and wrong now? It's quite possible that the judgment would not be domesticated. So, David Boys and Virginia Roberts wouldn't collect. That's one possibility. There are other possibilities. The lawsuit can be thrown out on various grounds, including being spurious. She has previously evidently tried similar things unsuccessfully. I have to say, had Miss Roberts or Mrs. Jufra, whatever name she goes by now, had she not been asking for damages, and she's not only asking for compensatory damages, she's asking for punitive damages. Had she not been asking for damages, I think her case would have been considerably stronger. Certainly, I would have had a far reduced level of skepticism than I do where she is concerned. Because I have to tell you, I find it deeply disturbing that any 17-year-old could pocket $15,000 for being nice to someone's friend, and this is her version of events, and then say down the line that she was being forced and that she was afraid, and she was afraid for her life, but not so afraid that when she met the man she wanted to run off with, she ran off with. But in the meantime, she was there on the jets, on the private planes, in the fabulous houses, going from place to place to place. I am afraid I am very skeptical. I am open to being proven wrong, but I would have to be proven wrong in a material way. And I see no way that I can be proven wrong, because her own admissions are what, in my opinion, mean that she has simply converted one form of greed for another. She's now greedy for the attention that she's going to get, and this is my view, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think she is greedy for attention. Nobody would be happier than me if Virginia Roberts Jufra would prove that my skepticism is unwarranted, and that she is not doing this for money, and that she's not doing this for attention, and that she is not doing this to set herself up in a starring role as some latter-day demigoddess who has overcome great ordeals. You know, I think we need to remember one or two things. A woman who is paid $15,000 for being nice to somebody's friend is somebody who likes the rewards of what she's doing. She may not have liked what she was doing, but she liked the rewards. I think the whole thing is regrettable. I don't know whether Prince Andrew is speaking the truth or not. I listened to his interview and I thought he was speaking the truth. I'm not going to go into the whys and wherefores of why I thought he was speaking the truth, but I did think he was speaking the truth. Had he not been speaking the truth, he would have been at far greater pains to present himself in a better light than the light which he did. The mere fact that he was being as revelatory and as honest as he was being tells me that he was being honest. He's not that bright that he can double and triple dutch us. Take it from me. That's one thing. Another thing is, even if he were not speaking the truth, even if she is speaking the truth, and they did enjoy relations of a sort, thrice, according to her. On no occasion was it illegal, and I find it very difficult to believe that she would have been stupid enough to be acting as if she wasn't enjoying it and didn't want it. She wouldn't have been getting $15,000. There would have been no repeat occasions. So I actually think that her story doesn't hold water. I don't think it hangs together. And I am deeply disturbed that David Boys has brought in class and privilege into something. Mr. Boys, privileged people are as deserving of justice as those who are not privileged. Prince Andrew is as deserving of justice as Virginia Roberts Giuffre. Neither is more deserving of justice than the other. Each is equally deserving of justice in terms of their rank and their identity. Let's wait and see what happens. I think the whole thing is deeply regrettable, and I will repeat what I said before. My skepticism would be considerably reduced if she wasn't going after bucks yet again. She has gone after bucks time and again. She got a lot of money from Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, by her own account, were so reassured as to her positive feelings towards them that they asked her to be a surrogate for their baby. What greater trust can you display in someone? I would like to know. I'm afraid I think the whole thing stinks to high heaven. And I am not accusing anybody of anything, but I will say of what she has said in the past, I fail to see how any rational jury that is not whipped up by clever, demagogic lawyers intent on getting their 50% of the takings, I fail to see how any jury would not actually be influenced by such material facts. But I have to tell you, I had my brother set up his law firm. I have sat in many a case on behalf of my brother's law firm. Justice doesn't always prevail. Emotion plays a part in decisions, and not everybody is as dispassionate in coming to conclusions as I am. I can't say I hope that this has been enjoyable, because it certainly hasn't been for me. And I think the whole thing is deeply regrettable, and I would hope that it will be resolved with celerity, but I doubt that it will be. Politics is a dirty business, and this is not only about money, this is about politics. And this is about protecting Bill Clinton so that he is out of the frame and that Prince Andrew is put into the frame. And it's also about money. It's about money. If it wasn't about money, they wouldn't be asking for compensation. They would waive it. And Mr. Boys, we're not fools. Virginia Roberts setting up a foundation and giving her awards to the foundation, we know how that one works. Find another way of duping us. That doesn't do the trick. You know, there are many very troubling aspects to Virginia Roberts Giuffre's claims. The contemporary evidence does not match the contemporaneous narrative in several instances. A case in point, a small one, but a large one as well, is that infamous photograph of Prince Andrew with his arm around her waist and Ghislaine Maxwell in the background, and obviously a fourth person taking that photograph. According to her, she was miserable, she was enslaved, she'd been trafficked, she was given $15,000 the following morning, she hung around for several more years, and she asked for the photograph to be taken so she could send it to her mother. That is deeply troubling to me, that anybody who was being so victimized could have actually asked for a picture of somebody who she now claims was her abuser, so that she could boast to her mother that she was in his presence. I'm afraid I must be awfully dumb, but that to me does not make 4 from 2 and 2. It makes 22, with a tremendous inflation in terms of what happened then and what the claims are now. Then there is the rather troubling claims that she made about her stay with Prince Andrew ostensibly on Little St. James, where originally she said that, I think his name is Jean-Luc Brunel, participated in an orgy, no mention of Prince Andrew. Then she changes her mind and she makes him a participant in an orgy. Well, there were 1 or 2 problems there. There was a lady called Gwendolyn Beck who shared adjoining quarters with Prince Andrew. She said he behaved perfectly, he was charming, he was perfectly civilized, and she heard not a peep. So not only did Virginia Roberts Giuffre, change the cast, but she changed everything else about the story. But even more troubling is her account in a memoir she wrote in 2011 called something like The Billionaires. Oh, I'm trying to remember what it's called. I can't remember. Oh yes, I have it written down here. The Billionaires Playboy Club. She also, in that memoir, aside from describing this incident with Jean-Luc Brunel, which she then shifts to Prince Andrew miraculously, she also described that Prince Andrew went and spent 2 days at the Zorro Ranch with her. And she was very reluctant, not of course that she obviously conveyed any of that to him, but she's now claiming she was reluctant, except she actually isn't claiming anything now, because she scrapped that entire encounter altogether. I don't know if you're troubled by such inconsistencies, but I have to tell you I am. I have found that the truth is not a constantly shifting thing. So, next point. I think Mickey realizes how distressing I find this whole subject, and she's very sweetly come to give me a little bit of comfort. Thank you, honey. I don't think it's creditable for any grown man to be messing around with very young women unless they fall in love. Otherwise, I really think it's discreditable to them, and it's discreditable to a girl who allows herself to be used by them. So I am not excusing anybody in this rather distasteful scenario. However, I think we need to be aware that where there is blame on both sides should accept their share of the blame. And I'm going to close on this note. Prince Andrew, if he is innocent, and he claims to be innocent, and I believe in life that people are innocent until they are proven guilty. That is our justice system, and that is the civilized and the decent way to behave. And if he is innocent, can you imagine how dreadful it is for him? Can you imagine the pain that his mother, his daughters, his loved ones are enduring? Can you imagine, and I'm sure this will have crossed his mind, the delight that people who don't wish him well are enduring? I say this not because he is a prince, but because he is a human being. I also say this because all of the evidence as presented by David Boys and by Virginia Roberts Jufra suggests that, in my opinion, Andrew is guilty of nothing more than, at best, taking what she has said to be truthful, terrible misjudgment, immaturity, and distasteful conduct. But there's also the possibility that he's not guilty. I leave you with that thought. And on that note, I will say thanks for listening. I can't say I hope you have enjoyed this, because it's dreadful, and I'm sure you can't have enjoyed it any more than I've enjoyed giving it. But hopefully it might have at least shed a bit of light on what is going on. And on that note, I will say, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell if you feel that what I have said has made a valid contribution to the subject. And please keep the questions coming in the comments section. They are invaluable, and I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to stretch to a smile today. I really can't. I would be hypocritical, and I'm just not prepared to do it. Sorry. God bless you. Bye-bye.